Hey, this is Gary Brackett, and welcome to another episode of Success Leaves Clues. First week of August, first week of kids back to school, and as we also expected, grand opening, grand closing. Right? This COVID disease is not going anywhere, but I was lucky to have a good friend, a doctor who's in town, who may have something that can help you out, a preventative measure. Now that being spoken about the preventative measures that we could take with COVID. So I am excited to have Dr. Brian Huber in town, in the office, on Success Leaves Clues to talk a little bit about this product.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of just spread a word of availability. Prevention's the key, right?
Nah, it definitely is. I would always say an ounce of prevention is worth more than 1,000 pounds of cure.
Yeah. In this case, absolutely.
So before we get into your product, let's talk a little bit just about your history, your background. Like where are you from?
Okay, well, I'm from Wyoming originally, but now live in Texas since '86.
Okay.
Since graduating vet school, I was veterinarian by training, and that medicine and that training served me very well. Leading into many entrepreneurial sides of human and veterinary healthcare, pharmaceutical development, regenerative medicine, oncology, and telemedicine. All those areas have been kind of dual action for me over the number of years. Veterinary development leading into human launches and partnerships in human medicine. So a lot of exposure.
Quick question there. We talked about a little bit, so veterinarian dealing with animals.
Yeah.
And the medicines that cure them, how closely are they with the animals that cure humans?
Exactly the same medicines that we use in people. Exactly. And in fact, in our oncology business, we use all the same oncology drugs because we don't have now we have one licensed drug for animals relative to oncology. So the whole world of veterinary cancer care has been built upon the exact same drugs that have used in humans for years and years. And so the disease, this is funny. We're talking about COVID, a coronavirus. We have dealt with coronaviruses in animals for years, even more so than in human healthcare. They tend to be classified as colds, and now we've got this flu-like coronavirus that's mutated. We've dealt with cat coronaviruses, large animal coronaviruses, dog coronaviruses, and it's been a part of our world and investigation and science for years in the animal world.
So is it fact that COVID-19 means that it's the 19th strand of COVID? Is that correct? Or
I think it's more of the year they diagnosed it.
Okay.
2019 is when it came into the world, and it's a SARS-CoV-2 strain. The COVID-19 acronym is just kind of because of the 2019, really when it started cooking in Wuhan, China and around. Right. And then we got the 2020 hit.
Yeah, right. But what year is this? I mean, I saw it before, but this is like new disease, COVID. I mean, it's been around for a number of years.
It's been around, coronaviruses in general. So this is kind of a mutated strain. And what is the challenge with all viruses? Everybody knows that the seasonal flu vaccine is important. But by the time they get it to market, it's about 25 to 35% effective because that seasonal flu has mutated. The viruses will change and modify their genetics, right, to protect themselves.
Sure.
They don't want to. The coronavirus has been around for a long time, but this is definitely a strain that had never been seen. Much more infective strain. Right. And the whole challenge is the fact that in this case, unlike many other symptoms of viruses, you are shedding this for 10 days or 14 days even before you feel sick.
Wow.
And before you don't know who you're sitting next to, who you're on the plane with, who you're at the game with, who you're playing football against or in school. And so that's the real challenge. And then the tracing creates another challenge. So how else can you prevent it other than a mask and hand washing?
Yeah, it's interesting because of the normal flu. The preventative measure there is a flu shot, right?
Yeah.
You get a flu shot from whatever strain they think is going to be that season. And people say, well, I got a flu shot, still got the flu. Well, it's not probably 100% perfect,
it's
right?
Never, yeah.
The strain is mutating. But I think the correct part, like the prevention piece, is like sometimes you don't get it as severe or you don't get it at all.
Right.
So it's like these things are also benefits from having a preventative measure.
Right. Any layer of prevention, I guess, especially when we're talking where we are today and the focus on preventative measures, because we do not have an immunization or a vaccine yet for COVID, is really important for people. Take, how you're responsible. What can you do for yourself, right? And the CDC guidelines are fantastic. Well, college started. We see how well that worked.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
Human nature.
I saw a meme. It was like, Yeah, adults couldn't figure out how to wear masks and like social distance. So I'm glad we think that little 6-year-olds are going to figure it out. It's cool. But these are colleges that we've seen. I mean, as early as Notre Dame, Michigan State,
Michigan
discussed.
State, all of them. They've started UNC. They started back down, and they're going to give it 2 weeks. Some of them, and 2 weeks isn't going to solve the problem.
Right.
It's behavior. It's not time.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think obviously, a lot of things that we don't discuss, and I know I'm a former football player, and everyone wants us to talk about all these big institutions that, that did away with sports. And it's a tough decision, right? And it affects not only them, the kids. I mean, the ramifications are going to be
huge.
Like huge.
Financial.
Oh, no, they're big time implications. So one, I think we have to take our own ownership, right, of people wearing masks, social distancing, which that's not occurring across the board. Some people don't necessarily believe in it, right?
Right.
But then in addition to that, like let's figure out more preventative measures that we can take.
And that's and that's exactly why we're here with you, and we appreciate the time, because like I said, there's no silver bullet here, right? We've heard somebody else say we don't have a silver bullet, but we need silver buckshot. Hit it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really, it's kind of true. And I think we have a piece of the puzzle that's very safe, and anybody can take responsibility of themselves and take care of themselves, with this product. A non-prescription, readily available. It is on the website or whatever that you can acquire it. You don't need a doctor's prescription. But the efficacy that has shown to date and the way we can apply it as a barrier to the nasal lining, the focus on the virus, really primary infecting through the nose and transmission through the nose. Yeah, there's eyes in it. So we don't claim it's going to be covering everything, but man, this is probably the 90-10 rule, and I believe as we're finding more and more out about the importance of nasal issues in how children hold the virus, spread the virus, maybe not become sick, but where we as adults that maybe are exposed to it become infected, and then it moves other places in the body. So, and then so with that, I think that this is as an option. This preventative measure within the nasal cavity is very easily accessible, and it's very easily done.
Right. So that's the background, I guess, the features and benefits of the product. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about the product in specific. What's the name of the product that you're referring to?
Thank you. So we have a name, a kind of a different name, but it's called APT, which stands for Advanced Penetration Technology. That's our formulation, our carrier, right? T3X, right? And so APT-T3X, and that's what the moniker, the name we have attached to it, because it is licensed. When you look at the bottle and the box, it's a FDA registered first aid antibiotic ointment. Right. That's what we call a monograph. That's how we create the product under the guidelines of what we're allowed to do. Right. Well, this product has a lot more efficacy than just that, and that's where the key is that. Excuse me. I've got a buzz. I usually have my phone off, and all of a sudden somebody in. But the APT-T3X as an ointment is a drop. We take that ointment and we put it on a Q-tip, and that Q-tip is then applied in the nose and wiped around appropriately. And you everybody sees how when they test you, they go so far back in. They call it oropharyngeal.
They
we don't have to go that far. We're not going that far. Never have to worry.
I've had my brain tickled a few times.
It feels like it's going to your brain, but it's more about. As far as comfortable as you are, you go along the lower channel, and then you paint it, and then you rub your nose, you breathe in, you do both sides, and you go about your day. There's no dripping, there's no anything like that. And what this is a barrier, right? We know from the studies in wound care and other areas we've used the product that we can extrapolate 8 years of data on efficacy and wrap it around the antiviral effects and the lab data we already have that's showing it's very 99.9% neutralization of viruses in that testing environment. When you talk about prevention, you're not talking about 100% anything. You're talking about, can we reduce the viral load, right? Exposure to whether it's flu, cold, or COVID, right? What we know, it's about the chronic exposure of the viral load. If you get a little bit in your immune system, you may be just fine, a healthy guy, right? But you don't know what you're being exposed to. If you had 4 kids at a birthday party, each one of them is asymptomatic shedders, and they're coughing and yelling, and the aerosolation, that environment presents a different challenge for everybody's immune system and the amount that's being exposed and breathed in normally.
Right. So I'm glad you said that, because that's a little bit about the incubation period.
Yeah.
Because I guess before, and they're learning new information, feel like daily on COVID.
Oh, yeah.
It was so contagious. You walk past somebody, or you touch something at the grocery store. I mean, it was, well, so we kind of learned some things right now, but I guess now they're narrowing it down to like an incubation period. You're around somebody with the disease for at a close range for a number of, minutes, hours, whatever the case may be, in order for you to get it. So your product is, like you said, it paints the nose and it kind of prevents that incubation from occurring.
What we expect is that we're doing is any of the virus that's going through your nasal cavity, you're breathing normally. Most people breathe through their nose. They don't breathe open mouth breathers, right?
Right.
As one of the doctors that worked with us says, we're a nation of nose pickers.
Yeah.
Right? That's why the nose is so important. We're just, you rub your nose, you take your mask off. What do? The first thing you do.
Yeah,
everybody rubs it because you're sweating.
Yeah.
Right? And there's no way around it. And you may have hand gel there, you may not. But little kids, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to be rubbing and when they take the mask off, it's all over.
Yeah.
So as a preventative strategy, I think that when we put it in there, any virus that's coming in there, first line hits that protective barrier that's in the lining of the nose and kind of in the front part. We're neutralizing those viruses, right? That's what the product does. It basically neutralizes the infectivity, prevents the infectivity. So they just kind of, you breathe them in, but when they're neutralized, this little envelope, the little viral envelope we call this, is ripped apart, they're neutralized. They're no longer infected. They're not living organisms, but we can say they're killed, but they're neutralized, right?
Right.
So the infectivity is the whole key. We're minimizing the number of those viruses that make it past the barrier. That's the goal.
And it's amazing because we talked a little bit before, this isn't like a quick fix. This is like a part of your beliefs, and if you're interested in a preventative measure, this is just like another piece to the puzzle.
You're right. There's no way that this is a standalone only thing. We know the challenge we've had from the beginning of COVID, even now, is that all the current recommendations of barriers and hand washing and social distancing, okay, some people take them seriously, a lot of people don't, right? But if we can add another option, an opportunity for another way to decrease infectivity of the individual, then we're all of a sudden, even with the sick people around or the asymptomatic shedders, we're stopping another person walking away and being a contact traceable, basically a typhoid Mary of COVID, right? You just don't know what you are. You're not sick yet. 10 days later, you feel, okay. Does everybody think back a week ago? No, they think, what happened yesterday? Who was I exposed to yesterday or 2 days ago? No. It's 7, 10, 14 days ago. And so contact tracing in some of those situations at colleges, campuses, is, I'm telling you, it's just almost impossible. To do effectively.
I had a friend today, we're supposed to meet as a group on Friday, reach out about the tracing, and he's been, selected by his family, right? So now they're in the whole quarantine thing. Yeah. So it's probably not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
So I think, taking preventative measures is definitely something that you have to add to your layer. So talk to us a little bit about where do we find the product at?
Okay. Well, right now it's sold on the website, and it's aptt3x.com.
Okay.
Single eggs, and there's a lot of information about it and why we're doing what we're doing, and you can buy the bottle right there and sent to home. And right now, based upon the growth of the company, we're not in retail yet. That's a step we'll wait to see. But it's available. It's been available actually in this new use case scenario of how we leverage this formulation. In this preventative nature has really come about so quickly since April, right? With all the other focus of pharmaceutical companies on how to help in COVID, we're one of the very few that look at a preventative mode that's not a vaccine. Right? What else can you do as a prevention? So there's just not many people looking at it, but this is a very strong and scalable, access for healthcare, for your own family, for your personal, yourself, for your office, for school kids and things like that.
So let's talk a little bit about how much can you get out of a bottle? Because we talked about how many droplets you use a Q-tip. You put 4 or 5 droplets on a Q-tip. Is that 4 or 5 droplets each? Each
so
side
usually
of your nose?
around 3 or 4 drops
3 or 4,
on the end, and that's an application that's swabbed in the nose, and so you're doing that twice, at least once a day prior to going out to work or to school or whatever. So that's about 12 drops. So there's 120 drops in a bottle. So we're approaching between 14 to 20 days, depending on how frequent you use it.
Right.
And everybody's situation is different, right? Because there's a lot of people who are still at their home base, and they're still in their known group of people. Although sometimes you really don't know who's in your group of people. Let's be true. The son, daughter goes out, parties one night, comes home, and you don't know what's coming with them.
Yeah.
In this day and age. But if you work from home, like my partner and I do often, or I'm in an office by myself, I don't necessarily have to put it on. But if we're going on their airplane, we do flights a lot, back and forth the same day, long-term flights. I'll use it once or twice a day. The healthcare professionals who use it, EMTs, nurses, doctors, they'll do it once a day, but they always have it with them, because if they're approaching 8 hours on their shift, they just feel that I'm going to just do a quick little swab in the bathroom and be good and go back at it and finish it up. And we have some EMT people who they're getting called at any hours of the day. They just basically do it right before they go out, because they're picking up all kinds of people, COVID positive people, ill people who could be COVID, they don't even know it. Nursing home that has a lot of COVID issues in there right now, and so they just as a preventative measure, I will say with that group of current users, we try to stay in touch with them relative to, as much as we can, relative to the HIPAA laws, and ask them questions like, hey man, any positive tests, any illnesses? And so far so good. There's been no reports of like, hey, I've had issues with positive tests or whatever. Now you can get quarantined because you were around somebody else, but they test them out, and they test out fine. Haven't tested positive or anything. So that's what we call anecdotal evidence. It's not clinical trial evidence. But we continue to accumulate that kind of data, which we're more than happy to continue to share and try to build
you have
upon.
It on your website, right? You had something done in the UK.
Yeah, we have
initial
testing. The validations, the antiviral testing that we had done on influenza A and NL63, which is a coronavirus. It's the surrogate. And we have more going on as we speak. We'll continue. We've got nothing to hide. I mean, it is what it is today. It's safe. No reported or documented side effects in 8 years of use of this formulation in all aspects of use. It's been used in wound care, acne, other areas, but we're now focusing on the intranasal application just for a prevention mode. So it's really a very safe product. I mean, knock on wood, we just haven't had any challenges along that line. Not to say we won't, that somebody has some very unusual reaction to. But if we do say, just like every other product, if you're allergic to the ingredients or you're allergic to tetracycline, which is a very rare allergy as far as antibiotics go, very rare, but it could happen. So it's common sense, I guess, if you're in that category.
Yeah, it kind of would make sense in like some of these large sporting leagues, right? Youth sports, even professional sports, college sports, if they had an extra layer to kind of protect their players, right? Because unfortunately, we see with the MLB where, they're continuing having to cancel games, quarantine players. And I think that's a big issue if you're in this professional league. I mean, let's be honest. If your top 5 players get quarantined, what kind of game is that going to be on Sunday?
I agree with you. I couldn't agree more. Is that, I'm a sports fan. I'll be the first one to admit that. But, the fact that, that they're, football, you can't bubble football. You can't create a basketball bubble in football, right? And it goes hand in hand with college and high schools, that the same volume of people around each other. I do believe that this would be hugely impactful as a, you can't dictate, but it's a recommendation. You can't endorse, but you can say, here's another choice. It's your choice, right? Those who take the choice, I do believe, would be safe. And I do believe they probably would never have a test that, other than they're having to be quarantined because they're around other positives.
Right.
But once they test them out of that, and maybe shorter than 2 weeks, they're going to find that those people probably don't have an issue. That's my belief, and that's continuing to build upon that as far as the data goes.
So, question: you have a crystal ball, and you're looking at a year from now. What does our world look like?
Well, I think that the combination of a vaccine is probably going to be good. I think that I've heard both sides of it, that there will still be challenges in getting enough people to take the immunization. There's still huge questions around the length of benefit one vaccine will provide an individual. They've seen antibodies drop very precipitously after one vaccine within 2 to 3 months.
Wow.
In certain strain, and there's so many. There's like 100 vaccines going on. So it's like I think the challenge is eventually finding which one is going to be the best, and then can that scale for global pandemic need? You know, because this is a world of mobility, right?
Yeah.
So we may,
it's a global economy.
We may think we got our house cleared, but who's coming from there? Who's coming from there? Who are we sending out and coming back a week later? That challenge is always going to persist, whether it's COVID, whether it's influenza, whether it's the next strain of MERS, you know, some inflammatory virus. So that's why a preventative measure can hang through forever. I mean, I believe this is an antiviral that as we evaluate it, which we will, we're right now focused on coronavirus type thing, but it probably will sustain its ability as a prevention measure for those who desire to use it. Right. I think it will be sustained. So a year from now, you know, I think unfortunately we're still going to be having some of these effects, and I hope they haven't. I hope they haven't decimated our college and sports world and people's lives as far as school and able to get back to some level of worship and large group settings. It's a challenge. I mean, it's really a challenge right now, as everybody knows.
No, absolutely. And I definitely appreciate you coming on and sharing with us this preventative measure. So one more time, what website can they go to kind of pick up the product or find out more information?
Okay. Well, the primary website, aptt3x.com. And there's information there. We continue to put more on there, of course, build it out as we get more, we have more understanding of what's going on, but it's safe. I think it's going to be an efficacious step for a lot of those who desire just another layer of protection, another layer of confidence, so they can keep moving into the community and be with their kids, see their grandkids, the somewhat normal life. Yeah.
That's our hope, right?
That's our hope.
So last question, I always end these podcast interviews like this. And the name of the podcast is Success Leaves Clues. And I think, you know, you traveled quite a bit, several companies, veterinarian school. So you've experienced some level of success. Yeah. And for me, I've always felt guilty when I had like the conversations we had over the phone, and like I get this information and just like, man, like I should start sharing this with people who follow me as a way to kind of give back, right? Because we're fortunate. So, so what kind of clues, if you could give me one clue that you kind of leave with our listeners that you have learned throughout your life that kind of helps you either make a decision, helps you be at more peace? Like what kind of clues do you share with your kids about just about life in general?
Well, you know, I guess I've had successes, and you know, you don't have success without failure.
Of course.
You know, and that's hard for some people to understand. So the failures build upon the opportunities for success. You look at it differently. You approach things differently, and as hard as those are, they're part of life. You know, whether it be relationships, business. You know, failure comes in all colors and shapes and sizes in everybody's life. Yeah. And what some people consider a failure, others think, that's nothing. But to that individual, it's impactful. And from that bores opportunities. I mean, you see things in a new light sometimes. You approach it differently. Maybe you approach it less aggressively and more cautious, or maybe in the next stage it's like, no, I'm going to either get this and run with it, and it either works or it doesn't, I think that again, it's kind of something everybody says, and I hate to sound like that broken record, but the stresses of life, whether there be just stress of a business that continues to succeed, but there's always a challenge in a timeline of growth and the opportunity within a business structure or a life structure, a relationship structure, you name it. Hopefully that comes out on the other end, you know, and you're using that experience in a positive way and twist in your own mind. You know, one thing I've had to learn, and I'll quit rambling, is I had to be able to lay down at night with stress, and I had to learn how to clear my mind so I could sleep. I mean, and that's how you approach the new day. Is like, nothing's going to happen. Nothing I could do for the next 4 hours to 7 hours is going to change anything that happened today or may happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
In the heat, and that's a hard thing when you're living in an environment of, I got a family, I got to do this, I got to do that, or I got to build this, I got to build that, I got to do this more. So that was it took me, believe me, it took me till I was about 48 years old to be able to do that.
Wow.
Just lay down and go, okay, the day's over. I've determined the day's over.
Right.
And then wake up in the morning and go back at it,
It's funny, two things. One, I think it was Warren Buffett that said, you can't get 9 women pregnant and have a baby in a month. Right? Yeah. So it's like the process is the process. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So you can't like expedite the process. It doesn't work that way. And the next thing, one of my lawyer friends just tell me, like, man, you just got to push away from the desk. It's like, as an entrepreneur or business owner, it's like a never-ending pie eating contest.
Right.
No matter how much pie you eat, there's more pie.
Always. And I admire a gentleman we just met. I won't say his name right now, but this guy will go to work. He leaves at 4:30. He gets there at 8 in the morning, 4:30, never touches his phone, never looks at his email until he gets back to work the next morning.
Wow.
And he has done that now for 15 years.
That's amazing.
That's discipline. Good idea, though, right?
Yeah, it is.
We're able to put it away. That's a challenge.
Yeah,
we are so connected. It's like we're a global community, and we're globally connected.
Nah, no question. So, man, I appreciate you being on, man. Well, I think this is definitely eye-opening. Definitely going to put the links in the descriptions. Make sure people can come check it out. Where can they find you? Someone wants to get in contact with you. Do you have an email address that they can kind of reach out to?
It's bhuber, BHUBER,
okay.
APT3x.com.
All right,
and
awesome.
Or the info on our website. You click the info and it gets to me. Or you ask questions, and we have people that can help answer questions to the best of our ability. We're not your healthcare provider, but we do our best job. And we have a nice section of FAQs about the product and where we are and why we're doing what we're doing too on the website.
You even have a site where you're demonstrating how to apply it.
I even had to, we say if I'm going to talk.
Yeah, that's it.
Show it, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Nah, that's it, man. Live it.
I'm not going to have anybody do anything else that I won't do myself.
Nah, that's it, man. Fine. Well, I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys for tuning in to another episode of Success Leaves Clues. Definitely smash the like button and share this one, especially with your friends, man. Like we said earlier, an ounce of prevention is worth more than 1,000 pounds of a cure. Yes, still wear your mask, still wash your hands, still do everything that the CDC tells you to do. But another opportunity could potentially be this application for precautionary measures. Because like I said, man, if you take care of yourself on the front end, you don't have to worry about the back end as much. So appreciate you guys and look forward to seeing you on the next episode.